everyone, and welcome to Whose Life Is It Anyway? A show where everything is made up, but the points actually do matter. If any of that sounds a little familiar, well, that's because yes, this is an improv comedy podcast where all the stories you're about to hear were completely made up on the spot, guided and prompted by real improv comedy games. How does it work? Well, two players are tasked with having a podcast-like interview or conversation, making it all up as they go, but there's a third guest who can interrupt at any time and give them new rules or new directions for their conversation via a list of different improv games and guidelines. How do you win? Well, if a player breaks character or simply doesn't follow the rules of the game they're in at the time, the other person is awarded a point, and at the end of a 20-minute time limit, the guest with the most points wins, and of course, becomes known to the world as a comedic genius. So, without any further ado, let's find out who's making stuff up in this episode. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Whose Life Is It Anyway? Where everything is made up, and truly the story that we're about to tell will not matter at all. That is because we are about to make everything up off the top of our heads with some guidelines and prompts given to us this time by our improv host, one Matty McClelland, back for this episode.
Thank you. This is the most important job I've ever been given.
It's of high importance. I'm at some point going to make that a throne that somebody sits in when they host this show.
That would feel right.
For this episode, sitting across from me, the person that I will be playing against and have to create a fake podcast conversation with, Josh Emerick, back on the show.
I'm here.
You're here, and boy, oh boy, do you sound ready. So, if you never listened to this show before, what's going to happen here is Matt is going to be our host of sorts here, and given this cheat sheet of improv games, he is going to give us different prompts and guidelines that Josh and myself will have to somehow take and try to form into even a somewhat sensible, podcast-worthy conversation where we have to make every single thing up. So, without any further ado, let's just hop in. Matty, you've got to assign us our roles and our characters for this podcast we're about to make up. Who's doing what?
I'm glad you asked, because we literally need to know that to get the podcast started.
Yes, we do.
Ross, you are going to be playing the role of the interviewer. Mm-hmm. All right? Which means you're going to be the interviewee.
Great.
All
I'm
right?
good at that.
We can do this.
Yes.
All right. Are you ready?
Yep.
You ready?
I'm so ready.
Let's go.
So, I just have to say, to start us off, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's honestly just a pleasure to be on your show. I've been a fan for the last 2 years at least. I've listened a couple times a week. You know, sometimes I turn it off usually 5 minutes in, but I'm glad to be here.
It is interesting because I've only been doing this podcast about 6 months, but I appreciate you've been listening to something for around 6 years. Anyway, it really is kind of a big deal to me that you're sitting across the table, because just starting this show up, it's been hard to get guests. So the fact that you're sitting here, the fact that you were down, I really do appreciate it. So the one thing...
Accents only.
Are you waiting for me? All right.
One of you must say something.
Well, anyway, what I was about to say was the biggest thing that I want to dive into is I appreciate talking to someone like you from my home country. I haven't had somebody that lives where I lived, on the show. So I really appreciate it.
Well, hell, you sound so fucking familiar to me, I tell you what. I just can't believe we're from the same home country, I tell you.
It is a bit wild that after all you've done, I can't put your face to your voice. It doesn't really sound like you're actually from my hometown. That's actually a good question to start this podcast off with. Where did you grow up?
Well, you see, I failed geography, so I don't know shit about geography, so I couldn't tell you where I grew up. My mom and dad left when I was 6 years old, and I just haven't really known where I've been.
Really? Your parents left when you were just 6 years old?
I thought we were still playing this game. What the hell?
Change what you did. Change what you said. I don't like it. Change what you said.
Well, see, when I graduated college in 1992, that's when I went off to be a professor at the MCU.
Nope. Try again.
Well, you see, I love drinking Mountain Dew in my spare time, and as you can see here, I'm a big fan of Mountain Dew, so I'm going to drink a little Dew.
I can
Better.
see that. Or do we have to keep the accents going? Is that
Yes.
what we're... All right.
I'm digging the accents. If you
Accents only.
Well, I can see that you brought your Mountain Dew here. It's really nice. I had some drinks in the fridge that you could have grabbed on your way in. But, you know, it's somebody like you, a fellow like you, it's great that you would indulge in such a healthy drink. Now,
I don't like that pretentious statement, if I'm being perfectly frank, because I tell you, I got that Mountain Dew from right over there in that fridge. So don't act like you don't drink no goddamn Mountain Dew.
So you did get it from over there. Well,
Yeah.
Mountain Dew is one of the sponsors of the show. Thanks for sponsoring. Shouts to Mountain Dew. If you order anything off Mountain Dew, you can get 10% off using the code Ross's Podcast.
Are you
So-
going to ask me?
Number of words. You get 4 words. You get 6 words.
Do I have to keep this accent at this point
No.
in time?
Yeah.
Accents
break it
only
out?
can break. Yeah.
How many words?
You get 4. You
Okay.
get 6.
Who's on?
You are.
You were just talking.
Thanks for having me.
I really just want to get 2.
To what, may I ask? Yes! God
Yeah.
damn it, I suck!
Oh, I'm so happy
Oh,
you fucked
man.
that up.
Ooh.
6 words.
You had him on the
It's so
ropes.
hard.
You had him on the ropes.
6 words is way too hard. I'm glad you
Yes, it is.
fucked that up, and I didn't have to keep playing that.
All right.
Oh, my God.
Keep playing the game.
So I really just want to dive into, how did you get to where you are?
As I said earlier, I've been drinking Mountain Dews for a long time. And I don't know, it just keeps my body going. It's fuel at this point in time. It just keeps me very energized. I don't sleep anymore, so...
When you were answering that question, who were you looking at? It's just us two here doing a podcast. Why'd you look over that way like you were telling somebody else?
I don't know.
If you know what I mean.
Well, I tend to do the do myself, if you know what I mean.
I think I know exactly what you mean, if you know what I mean.
I'll allow it.
What?
Adapt and overcome, Ross.
I'm just trying to really get to the bottom, if you know what I mean.
Well, in 92, I got to the bottom, if you know what I mean.
Now, something like that, I kind of want to dig a little deeper, if you get what I'm saying.
You know, when I was 16 years old, I used to actually do heavy lifting and digging ditches, if you know what I mean.
I did some heavy lifting on ditches when I was 16, too, if you catch my drift.
You know, I really like the film Fast and the Furious 3 Tokyo Drift, if you know what I mean.
It's very good. It's very good.
I like a little bit of Tokyo Drift myself, if you know what I'm saying.
I'm just having such a great time on your podcast. God damn it. This is fucking hard.
Lost 3 times!
I gave you Tokyo Drift, dude. And you repeated what he said twice.
It's
so hard.
Gave you
so hard.
many chances.
No, but to be fair, he's doing a great job, and I've enjoyed everything he's
You are
choosing.
doing a
Here's the
great
thing.
job.
The person who loses clearly makes the people laugh the most, so
You're right.
I'm winning.
You are right.
There's no losers
Yes,
in this game.
Are they laughing
There
with
are-
you or at you, then?
Definitely at me. No one's
Okay.
laughing with me.
Continue.
So I understand you like a lot of things. You like Tokyo Drift. You really like Mountain Dew. But why the interest in Dew itself? Where does that even start?
So this is a podcast about Mountain Dew. Okay, gotcha.
Well, I mean, it's kind of all you're talking about so far. So really, I mean,
so-
if it matters to you that much, let's just
back
kind
in
of...
so back in 1993, you know,
Yes, and.
Yes, and 1993...
I watched this documentary with my grandpa, and you know it.
Josh, that's a point off.
I thought I had to say yes.
It has to start with yes, and. You
I
can't.
was like, I gotta end this with yes. And not started.
Where were you going? My grandpa asked me if I wanted a hamburger, and I said
said
yes,
yes,
and please some French fries too.
It's so hard because I'm trying to play a game and tell a story.
Josh, it's okay. You're winning.
I'm not.
No, you're not. You're not winning at all. It's 3-0.
All right.
Continue.
So, what you were about to say, I'd love to hear that story about your grandpa. This is good.
I forget the story at this point in time.
No, it's okay.
Oh.
This podcast is only
yeah.
live streaming to everyone right now.
Great.
So, yeah, if you keep it on track.
Well, I grew up in the country, and I really loved, climbing up the mountain, and I'd make my own Mountain Dew, and then my grandpa died because of the Mountain Dew I made was not made correctly. I put a little bit of gasoline in there because I was thinking fuel, and, one thing led to another, and,
I'm sorry.
I'm still here and he's not.
So you killed your grandfather.
It was by accident.
We're going to do Whose Line. I'm going to distribute the lines now.
All right.
You must incorporate these
Distribute the lines.
into your banter.
Okay.
Go.
You just bringing that up, I want to hear the rest of the story, but I just have to say, I can really relate to you on that level. Now, I haven't murdered my grandpa, okay, but he did pass. And when I was there with him on his...
Change.
Now, I can relate to you in the sense that I also had a grandfather. And I'll...
Change that.
Now, honestly, really what you were saying, I truly can't relate to at all. Never had one grandparent in my entire life. So, I don't really know what you're saying, but I've always kind of imagined having a grandparent and the wisdom that they would share down and pass down to me, right? And as I've imagined those and played those scenarios out in my head, just the one thing that always comes out is I'm sitting there on my grandpa's bedside, drinking a Mountain Dew, much like you would, and he looks over to me, and he says, my grandpa looks at me and he says, I just want you to kiss me. And we just embrace, and it's just so magical. That's what I imagine having a grandparent is like.
Well, you're spot on. Every 5 minutes my grandpa was kissing me. So we spent a lot of times, nighttime, daytime, anytime really, kissing whenever we could. So by the time I met my wife, I was a pro kisser. And that's what my grandpa always really, he had this thing that he would always bestow upon me.
Really? I'd love to hear it.
The thing that he would always tell me is, I've never wanted to murder someone before I met you. And when I heard that,
Man,
he'd tell me
later.
He'd tell me that once a week, and it just really it infused a level of perseverance in me. And there's something I feel bad for you that you didn't have a grandpa.
Yeah. Well, it's such a wacky tale that you experienced that your
really
grandfather threatened you with murder, and then that you actually later murdered him with Mountain Dew. That actually. Sorry, the Mountain Dew thing actually reminds me of a quote that I saw on a Walmart T-shirt the other day. I bought it. It said, I farted on the cake. That's what it said. And it's something that I really like. I really like that. You know what I mean? Because it's just spontaneous. Kind of like, the interactions between you and your grandpa. I'm
telling you, they're putting anything in Walmarts these days.
They really are. They really are.
It's just really sad to see the world and how corrupt it's kind of become. I'm just ashamed to see such bad ideas being put on T-shirts.
That's fair,
It's, I don't really know what point I'm trying to make with that, but if I could think back to a fonder time and one of my favorite song lyrics that really got me through, those moments after my grandfather passed.
Yeah.
One of my favorite artists used to sing this line, and it went something like this. If you think that's small, you should see my penis. And that sentiment would always just kind of humble me. It would put me in my place and would remind me who I am, where I came from, my genetics. This is all about genetics and who we are. And if there's one thing I'm trying to do, it's trying to infuse my genetics with Mountain Dew.
Change what you just said.
If there's one thing I'm trying to do in life, it's trying to learn how to make the next version of Mountain Dew. I knew it!
Now switch places.
Because I just don't think that all the Mountain Dew that's currently in place in the world for us to consume, I just don't think it's good enough.
Well, I think as someone who has you on this show, I would really appreciate to know kind of what's next for you. Where are you going to be going? What's the next chapter in life for you?
Switch back.
Thank God.
So anyway, what do you think is coming next?
What's coming next for me? Hopefully tonight.
Number of words. 8 words.
You can't do more than 10. That's like a legit.
Fine, 10 words.
That's a legit roll. What the fuck?
That's so much.
What the hell?
Boys, the timer is still going.
Who's on? Who starts?
You. You were just saying tonight I'm going to.
I'm hoping the cum happens on time tonight.
I don't think I explained the rules of this show.
Well, you'd be right with that statement today.
I just really need you to get back to Grandpa.
Well, Grandpa was a friend and a foe.
That would explain why you murdered him in cold blood.
One might assume that you're correct about that.
Why so consumed with things like Mountain Dew and death?
Death is my life. Mountain Dew is good.
I understand where you're coming from with the Dew thing.
Dew and coming seem to be a topic.
All right, I think I'm going to give Josh a point.
Fuck yeah, I get a point.
It was 2 lines in a row that you just broke. 2 lines in a row.
You know, that's fair.
I'm pretty proud of that.
That's fair. That's pretty
I
good.
think you get into editing, you could recount my words I may have lost.
That's-
I think
yeah.
you just followed my
Yeah,
fingers.
We'll count. Yeah, we'll count your words in post.
Hey, I said it counts, so it counts.
I got a point. That's all I care about.
Maddie is the improv host for this one.
Continue.
So I just, you know, you've been through so much in your life, right? You had the grandpa murder. You had grandparents, which is something I'm just insanely envious of. I just want to know, you know, I understand you're working on new Dew formulas and everything, but we're talking about what's next. Where are you getting all the money?
Well, I appreciate, you saying that I've had a tough life, but I really think everyone's grandparents die. So it's not really that tough. It's pretty...
Questions only.
Everyone's grandparents die?
Why wouldn't they?
But how?
How? Fucking God damn it! It is so hard to not answer you.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Another point.
It takes every bit of
So
concentration.
good at listening, and I'm just like, I want to give him a thoughtful...
Okay. Go ahead and give him a thoughtful response.
What was the question again? Why do all grandparents die? Well, it's clearly obvious that grandparents die. People die. This isn't the Infinite Life podcast.
No, it's not, but I am thinking about starting that one up if this one goes well. I'm 6 months into it.
I'm going to go ahead and produce this podcast a little bit. It is now the Infinite Life podcast.
Well, honestly, you're wrong, because that's literally the title of the show.
Well, I am... What is next for me is honestly going to be, producing this new Mountain Dew that does promote Infinite Life. And there's this crystalline packet of hyperglycemine that actually will help improve lifespans to 150 years.
Change what you just said.
So there's this new toxic product that I'm putting in there to poison the world, but I'm keeping that super on the down low right now.
Yeah.
Hyperglycemine, it is this new toxic chemical. It's just very deadly, very toxic, and I'm just trying to really, replicate what I did with the grandpa, 20 years ago.
That does make sense, which is honestly why I wanted to have you on the show in the first place. This is the Infinite Life podcast. I wanted somebody with a death perspective on here finally, change it up a little bit.
We can't all live.
Change what you just said.
That's honestly why I'm kind of confused as to how you got through security to get on the show here, because this is the Infinite Life podcast, and I'm just not exactly sure your perspective lines up with what this is about.
Well, security is not so much Infinite Life anymore, if you know what I mean.
Are you playing a game that we played a while ago?
We're playing, if you know what I mean now.
I suck at this game.
Did you not start it?
It was accidental.
It's your turn.
Well, I've been known to clean up some blood with my broom, if you know what I mean.
One time I was cleaning up some blood with my broom, and my grandpa came in there and saw what I was doing, if you know what I mean.
Feels like you're just telling the same exact story over and over, if you catch my drift.
Well, I've saw this movie, Tokyo Drift, if you know what I mean.
It's not bad.
Fuck this.
No. Ross gets a point for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, see, we're playing the real game.
I'm sorry.
We're playing the real game.
All right,
How
I
much
suck
time
at
we
that
have
game.
left in this episode?
We have just a few minutes. Please continue.
Okay. So, we've talked about the grandpa murder. I don't really know why I had you on the podcast. That's on me. I should have done some more research, right? But, if there was one thing that you were going to leave everybody with, all Mountain Dew drinkers, since you are the new CEO of Mountain Dew, you're changing the formula. What's something you want your customer base to know?
Honestly, if there's one thing I want them to know, it's that I really don't give a shit about them. And for me, this is all about making money. It's about cutting throats. It's about killing off the world as quickly as I can through drinks, through murders, through gasoline, through whatever it takes. Grandpas, grandmothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, and all alike. I will be the last one standing.
You know what?
Yes, and.
Yes, and truly, I have to respect that honesty.
Yes, and I appreciate that you had me come on, and I love what we did last night. It was a really pleasurable time for me.
Yes, and that mess is still in my hotel room.
Yes, and I'm probably going to pay the bill for that, but it's A-okay for me because I had a great time.
Well, yes, and not all of us had a great time, but that's fine.
Yes, and if you'd like to come over tomorrow, we can drink Mountain Dews all day long.
Yes, and hamburgers?
Yes, and I'm also thinking we could also do cocaine.
Yes, and maybe go over some business plans for what you're going to do with the dew.
Yes, and we could look into those business plans in our pajamas.
60 seconds.
Yes, and honestly, just to wrap things up, thanks for being here.
Yes, and I'm going to keep this going as long as I possibly can because I love being here.
Yes, and you probably got more plans outside of this show, right?
No.
Got another point right at the end.
Yep.
The last
did.
30 seconds. Another point is mine.
Conclude.
Conclude?
You got 30 seconds.
Well, like I said, I really do appreciate you, I guess, being so honest. You're probably the most honest CEO of a company that I've ever talked to.
It's our core values.
Most of them hide the fact that they want to murder and pillage and just do it for money. So truthfully...
Number of words, 1. 10 seconds.
Love. What?
Do.
And that's the game. That's the game, y'all.
Can't use the.
Well done. He did.
He did.
I count it.
I guess.
I count it.
Well, speaking of counting, Matty McClelland, would you love to tally up the score as we've reached the end of the episode here? Let's count the points on the board to see who wins this episode of Whose Life.
Now, let me do some...
I think it's close if I remember correctly.
Yeah, let me do some counting here.
Might take you a minute to count.
All right. So, from looking at the sheet here, in which I've kept the score.
You have kept this. You want me to add a drum
It
roll?
looks like you have 6 points, Ross.
Oh, 6. All right. I hope Josh wasn't
Sorry.
too close
And
to
Josh, you have slightly less than that.
No way.
that. He wasn't that far behind, I don't think, right?
I crushed it with yes and.
He did earn yourself a point, which is great.
That's awesome.
And then you almost earned yourself another point, but then you didn't. So you have 1 point. It's 6-1.
6 to
6
1
to 1
is the final score in this episode. So just to clarify, I won.
Yeah, you won this little game, but
But
are
we
you
all
really
win.
winning?
But we all win in the end.
We all win.
It
I
was
would like to
about-
believe so.
It wasn't the points we got in the games. It was the friends we made along the way.
And also the points you got in the
But
game.
also the points. The points
Sorry,
are very
Josh.
important.
Points
and
I didn't
I
get.
did want to
I
win
do
the
want to
show.
give him an honorary point for mentioning Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift that many times.
He did mention it a handful of times.
My favorite movie.
If you
I was
would've-
on board every single
If
time.
you would have given him a point for every time he mentioned Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, he probably would have beaten me.
No.
He would have had.
No, he wouldn't have.
I would have got 4 points.
No, you would have still won.
I still would have won. Wow. Well, look at that. I won. That could sound like I just rigged my own show.
That's what I think.
To win.
I think
But-
it was rigged.
Yeah.
People did just listen, and they listened to everything that you just said. Here's how we're going to end this one. Since you talk so much about Mountain Dew, I want you to chug the rest of that in that can right now. Listeners, he is chugging. Great.
I imagine
No,
more
there's
people
still
are
more in there.
Oh,
there's still.
No, I drank it
there's
all.
still more. Nope.
I drank it all.
Hey.
Wow. There's a difference between improv and lying, pal. You got more Mountain Dew to drink.
Well, I'm a good liar.
Well, according to the points, you're not. But I think that'll do it for another episode of Whose Life Is It Anyway? Maddie, would you like people to find anything you do around the internet?
I do have an Instagram.com account at Matty_online because I am online and my name is Matty.
Wow, pretty straightforward and to the point. Very, I understand why you did that. Josh, if anyone wants to come to you for improv lessons, where can they find you around the internet?
I'm talking Mountain Dews and freaking improv comedy all day, baby, on JM Emerick on the
That
Instagram.
We'll do it for another episode. Thanks for looking. Thanks for listening. And we just made a lot of stuff up. It was pretty good.
There was a lot of stuff
Fun.
made up.
6 points. 6 points right here.
1 point.